Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa. I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is October 8th, 2017, and I'm going to continue the series from Keep It Simple. We're reading through December's meditations, and if you want to follow along, if you have this book, I'm going to go ahead and read it now. This is for December 4th. The measure of a man's real character is what he would do if he knew he would never be found out, by Thomas Macaulay. We must live our new life all the time. This is what the 12th step means by practicing these principles in all our affairs. We try to be honest all the time. We don't cheat and we tell the truth when asked a question. We learn that even if we can get away with something, we can't get away from ourselves. This makes our lives so much easier. Our relationships and our spirituality get built on solid ground. We also come to trust in ourselves. We depend on ourselves to do the right thing, and we do. How nice it is to count on ourselves. Prayer for the day. Higher power, make me strong enough to practice the 12 steps in all my affairs. Action for the day. Have I done anything that's bothering me? If so, I'll set a time to talk about it with my sponsor. The two of us can figure out how to solve it. Cool. Again, I don't read these before I sit down to record these. So I am impressed what this has to say. Yeah, I absolutely agree clearly that it matters that we encompass ourselves in all parts of our lives, which sounds like a very like no duh comment, but I'll tell you, when I was in my addiction and even in the first couple of years of sobriety, I struggled a lot to be and to show up as my whole self. And when I did, it wasn't that impressive because I was still operating on a lot of survival tactics and defense mechanisms and values that I had to have as an alcoholic who was really afraid of life and afraid of herself and afraid of other people. And so, that really caused me to act out in a lot of ways that were not ideal, that were not ways that I was proud of. And so to be able to now just show up as one person and show up as that same person, whether I'm at work or with my family or with my friends or at church or in a meeting, I try and I trust that who I am is going to be the same person through and through. And that's even why I get a little bit iffy about talking crap about people. I'll be like, is this, I'll like stop myself sometimes if I'm like expressing an opinion that I think might be like rude. I'm like, is this rude? Am I just talking crap? I'll like kind of stop myself and be like, ooh, if this person was here right now, would I tell them this? And most of the time, yes, but most of the time I probably rephrase it in a different way. Like I just am constantly under the impression that anything that I say will get out to everyone. And so I just need to kind of operate from that. Like, what do I feel good about thinking? And if it's something that I don't want getting back to somebody, or if it's something that is that I would feel embarrassed about getting back to me, well, what is it about that? Is that thing true, or was I like lying about it? Like, what is it about that that would cause me shame? And again, this is like in everywhere, in every situation, whether it's work or family or anything, right? We try to be honest all the time, and it's important that we try, right? And not as an excuse to opt out just because we don't want to, and like, oh, well, I tried. It's like, no, trying is really trying. Like, that's a promise to yourself to try to be honest. You don't get, extra credit or a reward for just being honest. Like, this should be our base operating level mode where we operate as humans if we are interested in other humans and in real connection with others, right? We don't cheat and we tell the truth when asked a question. I remember one of the big AA speakers, I don't know who, maybe it was like Sandy Beach or something like that, was talking about how you can always tell, or maybe it was actually Mark Houston. He would say, you can always tell an addict or an alcoholic because you'll ask them a yes or no question, and maybe 10 minutes later, you'll get your response. And it's so true. And it happens every single time with sponsee I even do this, my sponsor will ask me something, and I'm just like, well, okay, so what happened was that like, and then what happened? And then because of that, this happens, and that's why, blah, blah, blah. So no, I didn't do it, or like, no, I didn't go, or like, so yes, I lied, whatever. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like we should just be able to tell the truth to a question when someone asks us. It shouldn't be a huge beating around the bush novel narrative that we need to sit through. And we learn that even if we can get away with something, we can't get away from ourselves. And this reminds me of actually when was first in the rooms, another one of my mentors, her name is Tyla. She would talk about how, she's like, if I work in an office, I cannot leave that office knowing that I even stole a paperclip or a pen. And we're like, oh, okay, that's so dramatic, right? But she's like, the moment that I give myself the permission to be dishonest in stealing something as minor or as little or as inconsequential as a paperclip, I will take that. I can make that bigger. I can make that permission just a blanket little by little. It won't happen right away most of the time, but gradually I'll start to give myself smaller and bigger permissions to be dishonest, to take bigger and bigger things, to lie more and more. And then the next thing you know, we're just living in this filth of lies, of dishonesty, of obscurity that keeps us blocked from other people, but more importantly, keeps us blocked from the sunlight of the spirit from God. And it's important to know that these lies block us because we know that they don't fully integrate with who we want to be and who we were created to be. And so it's not God blocking us out because we're just so shameful. He doesn't want to look at us because of our lies. It's us blocking ourselves from God. God is always there. I always love the saying of, oh, I found God, and was God lost? Where God has always been God. God has always been present, always around since the moment you were conceived to the moment you take your last breath, and even after and before. God is everywhere, constant, present, and loving and knowing, right? So God has not been lost. My dear sweet one, it is likely you, it is likely me. We are not finding God. We are just reconnecting to this presence that is always there and does not leave us. And so I think it's really great that even if we can get away with something, we can't get away from ourselves. It's like we still understand there are still spiritual and emotional and mental consequences to dishonesty. Even if we say that, oh, we don't care, whatever, it's just such and such, it's just a paperclip, it's just a paperclip. Okay, but that paperclip will quickly turn into other things. And again, it's that minor permission that we start with that ends up eventually leading us back to drinking or drugs or blowing up relationships or stealing from work or whatever it is. And so I've always been really mindful of that. And, as minor as something, I mean, I've maybe taken it to, I mean, I don't know that there is an extreme with honesty, actually. There have been times where I mean, I can't think of an example right now, but there have definitely been situations in which I have gotten away with something either on purpose or on accident. And when I found out, it was like, oh, well, now is when I go and tell someone, or I just keep it to myself and that's it. Oh, I can tell you a couple of examples. For some reason, they're about shopping. I remember I ordered something from like an Instagram ad and it was, imported from like, I guess China or something. And it took like 2 months to get this bag. And I had this bag and it was like, $50. So it was enough for me to like care about it. And so I didn't get it. And I was like, hey, where is it? The tracking on it says that they can't find it in the system. And so I reached out to the customer service and they were like, oh, okay, it looks like your package has been lost. So we'll go ahead and refund you. And I was like, okay. And so they refunded me, and that was a bummer because I was waiting for it for like 2 months. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just find something else. But I'm glad I got my money back at least. And then not even like a week later, I got the package and I got my bag. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, okay, well, now I just got this package for free, right? Now I just got this bag for free. And I had the opportunity there to like be dishonest about it, right? But something about it, I was just like, okay, I need to pay for this, actually. So I reached out to the customer service again and was like, hey, actually, it arrived. I got it. You can go ahead and charge me for the bag again. And they were like, oh, no, that's okay. You can just keep it. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'll keep it. I'm not trying to, shove my money at you, but for sure I'll take it as long as you. And so they're like, yeah, it's fine. It was our mistake for the package getting lost and the tracking, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, great. That happened again. I got a shirt from the Comedy Store and it was a special limited run edition. And I don't know, like again, like a month went by and I was like, that's interesting. I still haven't gotten the shirt. And so I wrote them and I wrote them. It was right in the middle of the pandemic, actually. And they're like, yeah, sorry, the gal who usually does our shipping is not here. We can just go ahead and refund you if you want. And I was like, okay, cool. And so they refunded me. It was like a $30 shirt or something. And then again, the next week the package shows up and I'm like, oh, that's interesting because I saw that they mailed it actually after I'd gotten refunded. And so I messaged them and I was like, hey guys, there was a mistake here. There was a refund initiated, but now it looks like you guys still sent out the package. So if you want to go ahead and charge me for the shirt, that's fine. And they were like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. You can just have it. I was like, are you sure? Like, this is clearly a mistake. And they were like, it's fine. You can just go ahead and have it. And I was like, okay, cool. So, there's situations where I very clearly could have gotten away with it and it was inconsequential to them. But to me, in my integrity, in my honesty, I knew that anytime that I looked at that shirt, I'd be like, oh, actually, that was kind of dishonest. Or anytime that I had that bag, I'd been like, okay, I got this for free, but not in a great way. And that reminder, that daily reminder of those things would be like, it subconsciously is like, well, if our honesty level that we say that we live by is up here, I've now lowered it to here. And if now I'm operating from this level of honesty, what else can I get away with? And it doesn't even have to be that like blatant or that obvious. It just is a very subtle dishonesty that we have with ourselves and with myself, especially. I just know that that's the way that I operate. And sometimes if I like am dishonest about something because in the moment I'm like, whatever, somebody's like, do you like this? Does this dress look nice on me? And I'm like, oh my God, that's the ugliest freaking dress I've ever seen. But I'm like, yeah, it looks gorgeous. Oh my gosh, looks great. Then that is like a different kind of lie, right? Like maybe I just don't like the style of it because it's just not my style. But what am I afraid of? What is happening in my relationship with this person where I think that I can't just tell them, if you like it and you feel comfortable in it, that's great. It's not really my style, but I think I don't like the dress, but I think it looks good on you. If you feel comfortable in it, that's really what matters. Like that would be the more honest way to say something like that, right? That's why also everyone just needs to be careful when you ask for my opinion on anything, just because I'm not gonna bullshit you. I just cannot. And if I do, I will come back and be like, when you ask me how that dress looked, I just want, like, I think it looks great on you. It's just, I wouldn't have picked it. There was the other dress that, like, whatever. And sometimes it is overkill. And sometimes I do look like an idiot. Like, that is just the reality of being a human. I'd rather look like an idiot for being honest than look like an idiot for being found out that I'm a total liar or now I can't be trusted because now that's not in alignment with my values. That's not who I want to be. And so that is really important because whether or not other people know that I'm being honest, I know that I have to be honest. I know that I'm the one that needs to live in this skin and know if I'm like operating from a place of integrity or not. And also, it just strengthens relationships, actually. Our lives are so much easier. Our relationships, our spirituality get built on solid ground. I don't know if you've ever, I mean, some of my relationships in my addiction were just built on lies, particularly the lie that like my needs weren't important or that they didn't need to get met or that I cared about their needs and that I was interested in meeting their needs. Like I've been on both sides of that coin and just it's a complete in why? Because I was afraid of being alone, because I was afraid of being rejected. In those types of relationships that were built on that basis, were selfish and they were based in fear, and they inevitably always led me to a much darker place than I would have been just on my own. And so now, even with my friendships, I'm like, you can hurt my feelings. Like, if I know that you're coming to me with some honesty that you know that I need to hear, and I know that it's coming from somebody who loves me and who wants the best for me, I'm okay getting my feelings hurt to hear the truth. It's when people who I don't know, who I don't trust, are like coming at me with their truths. I'm like, there's no relationship here for that type of consent to really happen unless you think it's really important and imperative to my survival as a human or whatever, there's that. But yeah, I think that when our relationships and our spirituality are are based on these. That's the other thing. Spirituality, some people do operate from this place of like performative spirituality or performative faith, and it comes more from a place of judgment and like holier than thou and superiority because now I got religion or whatever. And like it's not honesty. Honesty is not about showing others, right? It's about just showing up for God with God, showing up for God. And it's like it's our relationships to God are so personal. I couldn't imagine that your relationship to God would be the same as mine because I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. Like, I think God has a good sense of humor, and I get a good chuckle from some of the things that God shows me. And some of the, yeah, it's just so personalized to me and my sense of humor and how I kind of see the world. And I know that God connects to every person in a very specific way. And sometimes it's through artwork or poetry, and sometimes it's through business or relationships. And so I have my ways of communicating with God and where I'm like, okay, I get loud and clear. I see that. And so, or sometimes it's just like, that's the confirmation that I needed. That's the love that I needed to feel in that moment. There's nothing else in this world that could have spoken to me precisely in that way more perfectly than God could. But if I'm operating and some of those things are so beautiful that I don't even talk about them. Like I don't even have to share them because it is just it just comes from I don't have the need to do that. But if I were here to like I like prove to you like how spiritual I am, and I was like, and then I had this vision, and then I did this, and I although I would love to have a vision, that would be pretty cool. It would be more like and then I went and helped and I fed all these homeless people and then I saved all these lives. Like it's just I don't know, that comes more from a place of ego and honestly it does still come from a place of fear because it's like I have to show my worthiness. I need to show how worthy I am of God's love and I was like I gave up on that a long time ago. God already knows who I am and all the ways I find myself unworthy, God still finds me worthy. And so I have to operate from that place of humility and not this like striving towards of spirituality and faith. Like all I can do is continue to grow from a place of humility or try to at least and not so much like how is it looking? Am I looking spiritual enough? Because you can catch me on a bad day. I'm not going to be spiritual. All right. I am. You're going to be like, I'm sorry, you're a Christian. I'm like, yeah, I am. And I'm like, meanwhile, I just cuss somebody out or something. So it's like, yeah, this honesty with ourselves, with our spirituality. And we also come to trust in ourselves. We begin to develop trust in ourselves, in our intuition, in our opinions, in our values, in our worthiness, in our actions, right? And the more, I don't know about you, but like the more that I was steeped in like lying and dishonesty, cheating, stealing, I really didn't like myself because I knew that nobody else could like me because I was never showing them my true self. So it was like, I wanted to feel connected to other people, but how can I be connected to other people when I wasn't even connected to myself? And so that was a really important lesson that I had to learn in recovery for sure. And how nice it is to count on ourselves. 100%. It's very nice. So again, the prayer for the day is higher power, make me strong enough to practice the 12 steps in all my affairs. And then the action for the day is, have I done anything that's bothering me? If so, I'll set a time to talk about it with my sponsor. The two of us can figure out how to solve it. And for advanced level people, I would say just take it directly to God. If you can really sit in when you have developed enough trust and honesty within yourself and in your relationship with God, you can actually just skip the sponsor and go directly to God and sit in meditation and see what guidance you're getting. I am a huge proponent and believer that we have all of the answers within us already. And this comes from the knowing and that connection that we have with this greater power that extends beyond us. So I hope that this was helpful. Tell me what you think about this quotes again, and I'm going to read it again. The measure of a man's real character is what he would do if he knew he would never be found out. What do you think about that? All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day.